saying that if government says don't pay, don't pray because government say don't pray. It's talking about paying taxes, not obeying government in all things. Obeying government in all things is not apostolic teaching. Jesus didn't obey Pilate. He didn't obey Herod. Neither did the apostles. In fact, the apostles say we must obey God rather than men. And they were talking to governmental authorities. So what Paul was teaching here is pay taxes so that your government can continue to provide you societal services and enabling environment for you to live so that you can serve God. So now in Romans chapter 13 verse 1, please pay attention. Romans chapter 13 verse number 1. Romans 13:1. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Next verse. Whoso therefore resisted the power, resisted the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. Next verse. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Will thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. Now, people have assumed that what he meant here is that when you see human government is of God, like AFC and FDF and ADC and LUP. Nigeria is a cruise. So you know AFC is the government of God. Shut up your mouth. Neither is PDP, neither is LUP. None of them. None of them. They're all human governments. Constituted by humans. Run by humans. Decided by humans. And it's survival of the fittest. Yeah. It's survival of the fittest. The only justice is survival of the fittest. That's the only justice. Even in the court of law, is survival of the fittest. That's why a criminal can walk free. It's survival of the fittest. An innocent man can go to prison for life. Natural government is not God. Natural government is man. The heaven belongs to God. The earth he has given to who? Sons of men. Now, I'm saying all of that because I'm about to open something. Again, the reason why people conclude that is because they are reading things out of context. When they say every government or authority is ordained of God, he's not talking about God is behind all governments or God is behind natural government. So why will he say this when in the same letter he said, Brother Paul said that he may be delivered from them that do not believe in Judea. It's in that same Romans 13. Why will he say this when he spoke about a man earlier in Romans chapter 9 verse 11? He speaks about Pharaoh who resisted the power of God in the same context. So again, always situate statements in context. It's not saying anything you see in government is of God, because you have to keep reading. Look at verse 3 of that Romans chapter 13. Verse 3. Pay attention. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Will thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. Next verse. For he is the minister of God to thee. But if thou do which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Next verse. Wherefore, you must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. Now, what do I mean? What he's talking about here, look at verse 6. And for this cause, pay ye tribute also. That's all he's been talking about. Pay ye tribute. For they are God's ministers attending continually upon this very thing. So what Paul was talking about is just pay tax. Pay tax. That's all. That's all he's talking about here. This whole verse is about paying tax. Look at verse 7. Render therefore to all their dues. Tribute to whom tribute is due. Custom to whom custom. Fear to whom fear. Honor to whom fear. That's all Paul is teaching here. That's all he's not saying that if government says don't pay, don't pray because government say don't pray. He's talking about paying taxes. Not obeying government in all things. Obeying government in all things is not apostolic teaching. Jesus didn't obey Pilate. He didn't obey Herod. Neither did the apostles. In fact, the apostles say we must obey God rather than men. And they were talking to governmental authorities. So what Paul was teaching here is pay taxes so that your government can continue to provide you societal services and enabling environment for you to live so that you can serve God. Now in Matthew 28, when we say all authority, it's not every kind of authority. He's talking about the authority to teach and preach about salvation. Then in verse 9,